At 2:41 a.m., my phone screamed me awake. It wasn't a ringtone. It wasn't even the emergency broadcast sound we're used to, the harsh, descending tones that spike your adrenaline. No, this was a low, glitched chime, like a corrupted lullaby played backward through an old speaker. And the message that followed chilled me far more than the sound. Emergency alert. Do not enter your basement. Stay above ground. No weather warning, no explanation, just that. I blinked at the screen, groggy and confused. I live alone in a one-story house on the edge of town. My basement is more of a crawl space, really. I only go down there to change the filter on the furnace or drag out Christmas decorations. But the moment I read the message, I felt it. The weight of something waiting beneath the floorboards. I sat up in bed. My phone buzzed again. Alert repeat. Do not enter your basement. Stay above ground. This message is intended for Melanie Rivers. My blood ran cold. It knew my name. The next 30 seconds were a blur of motion. I threw on my robe, grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, and turned on every light in the house. Something about the shadows felt wrong, heavier, like they resisted the bulbs. I should have called someone, my mum, 911, anyone. But I didn't. I just stood there in the hallway, staring at the thin seam in the floor where the basement door sat flush with the linoleum. My phone buzzed again. Do not open the door. Stay where there is light. And that was the first time I heard the footsteps. Soft, deliberate, like someone barefoot, slowly pacing across concrete. Below me. I backed away. My heart thundered. I didn't move for a full 5 minutes. Then, as suddenly as they began, the footsteps stopped. At 3:11 a.m., my phone buzzed one final time. The entity is detected below. Basement entry. Geek termination. I slept in the bathtub that night with the lights on, clutching a frying pan like it could protect me. When morning finally came, everything looked normal. Sunlight poured through the windows, birds chirped outside, and my phone showed no record of any emergency alert. I even checked the local news. Nothing. No strange messages, no unexplained events. No mention of my name. I convinced myself it had to be a vivid nightmare, maybe some lingering side effect of the sleep meds I've been on since the breakup. That was until 9:32 p.m. the next night, when the lights flickered, and I heard a whisper rise up from the vents. Melanie, come down. I didn't move for a long time after I heard my name in the vent. The voice wasn't mine, and it wasn't anyone I knew. It had that wet texture to it, like someone was whispering while gargling water. Just 3 words. Come down, Melanie. It echoed faintly through the metal ducts, vibrating against the walls, soft but unmistakable. I turned every light back on in the house, one by one. Even the porch light, even the attic bulb. I didn't care about the electric bill. The glow from each switch made me feel like I was pushing the darkness back just a little. But the hallway near the basement door, that was different. The light there buzzed softly, flickering once every few seconds. No matter how many times I replaced the bulb, it never stayed steady. That spot had a temperature drop too, like the air was thinner, hollow somehow. I told myself it was all in my head. I told myself stress was rewiring my brain. I told myself a lot of things, but I couldn't bring myself to open that basement door. Not after the alerts, not after the footsteps, not after the whisper. Instead, I called a repairman. I didn't mention the voice, I just said the furnace was acting weird and the air downstairs was off. I booked an appointment for the next morning. If something was down there, I wanted someone else to see it. Someone rational. Maybe he'd find a raccoon or a burst pipe. Maybe he'd find nothing at all. Maybe I was losing my mind. But then, at 1:04 a.m., my phone lit up again. This time, there was no sound. Just a silent vibration and another alert. Do not allow entry. No one must go down. I sat there on the couch, staring at the screen. What the hell did that mean? I typed a reply, reflexively, like it was a text. Who is this? What do you want? No response. I waited. I tried again. Why can't someone go down there? Still nothing. The silence stretched for 10 minutes, maybe more. I was about to put the phone down when I noticed something odd. My background had changed. It was no longer the photo of my dog, Max. It was black. Just a grainy black screen with what looked like A basement staircase, faintly visible in the darkness. And in the corner, something was standing there. Something stick-thin and wrong. No details, just the shape. I dropped the phone. When I picked it back up, the background had returned to normal. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might faint. Then came the scratching. Not on the door this time, but inside the vent. A slow, deliberate drag of something metal or clawed against the ductwork. It moved with intelligence, not the frantic panic of a trapped animal. It paused now and then. It scraped again. It was exploring. The voice returned, closer, wetter, thicker. "It's safe down here, Melanie. It's better in the dark." I ran upstairs to the bathroom and turned on the shower just to drown out the sound. Morning arrived, grey and slow. The repairman showed up around 10. His name was Paul. Middle-aged, bearded, friendly in that seen-it-all kind of way. I told him to be careful, that there might be mold or vermin. I didn't tell him the basement was potentially haunted or inhabited by some basement-dwelling shadow entity. I didn't want him to walk away, or worse, report me. He opened the basement door, sniffed the air, and turned to me with a small frown. "You sure no one's been down here recently?" I shook my head. "Why?" "Smells like wet concrete and, I don't know, old meat." He flicked on his flashlight and descended the stairs. I waited at the top, ears straining for any sound beyond his footsteps. They echoed once, twice, then became muffled. A full minute passed. Then 2. "Paul," I called out. No answer. "Paul, you okay?" Still nothing. I was about to go get my phone when he finally reappeared. But his face, something was off. He looked pale, like someone had drained half the blood from his body. His hands were trembling slightly. He didn't speak right away, just reached into his bag, pulled out his phone, and showed me a picture. "What? What is that?" I asked. It was a hole, a perfect circle carved into the far wall of my basement, surrounded by soot-black stains and what looked like dozens of tiny handprints. Child-sized, burnt into the concrete, some were upside down. "I don't know," Paul said, his voice thin, "but I'm not going down there again. You should call somebody." Then he packed up and left, and that night at 12:44 a.m. a new alert arrived. "A door has opened. Do not descend. Do not think of the door. Do not think of the hands." Too late. I was already thinking of both. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I really did. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Those handprints scorched into concrete. Dozens of them. Tiny, upside down, impossible. I'd always thought a handprint meant a child had touched something once. These looked like something had pushed through from the other side. The alerts hadn't come back since midnight, but their silence was worse. It felt like being watched by something patient, something that didn't need to make noise anymore because it already had my full attention. Every bump in the walls, every gust of wind through the vents, every creak of the floorboards above or below, I jumped at all of it. Around 3 a.m., I broke. I stood in the hallway staring at the basement door. The silence felt wrong, like a vacuum, like something was waiting for me to break the rules. I pressed my ear to the door, nothing. No whispers, no scratching, just silence. But it felt intentional. I pulled back, and then behind me, a chime. My phone lit up again, but the screen was different this time. It wasn't a standard alert. It was a warning in red text, with a timer counting down from 60. Thought breach detected. Suppress all imagery of a black circular hole, small upside-down hands, the whispering voice, "Come down, Melanie." Timer, 00:59. I blinked at it, confused. What the hell is a thought breach? The timer kept ticking. 00:48, 00:47. Then the phone vibrated more violently than before. A secondary warning popped up. Failure to comply may result in mental interface breach. I tried not to think of the hole, but that just made me picture it. The scorched edges, the soot, the darkness inside, the handprints. I squeezed my eyes shut and focused on literally anything else. My dog as a puppy, fresh laundry, my third-grade spelling bee, but the thoughts kept bleeding back in like ink in water. 0.25, 0.24. I could feel something shifting around me. The temperature dropped, but the pressure rose. The air felt denser, like the walls were listening. I bit down on the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood, trying to drown the images in pain. It worked a little. 0010. Don't think of the hole. Don't think of the hole. 0003. At 001, the screen flashed blinding white, then it went black. I waited for something to happen. Some punishment, some scream from the vents, something grabbing my ankle from beneath the floorboards. But nothing came. Instead, a new alert appeared. Breach temporarily contained, mental shielding required, do not speak of the basement to anyone, do not trust individuals who mention it first. I threw the phone across the room. It clattered onto the rug and lay still. I stayed on the couch until sunrise, barely breathing. Not on the door this time, but inside the vent. A slow, deliberate drag of something metal or clawed against the ductwork. It moved with intelligence, not the frantic panic of a trapped animal. It paused now and then. It scraped again. It was exploring. The voice returned, closer, wetter, thicker. It's safe down here, Melanie. It's better in the dark. I ran upstairs to the bathroom and turned on the shower just to drown out the sound. Morning arrived, grey and slow. The repairman showed up around 10. His name was Paul. Middle-aged, bearded, friendly in that seen-it-all kind of way. I told him to be careful, that there might be mold or vermin. I didn't tell him the basement was potentially haunted or inhabited by some basement-dwelling shadow entity. I didn't want him to walk away, or worse, report me. He opened the basement door, sniffed the air, and turned to me with a small frown. You sure no one's been down here recently? I shook my head. Why? Smells like wet concrete and, I don't know, old meat. He flicked on his flashlight and descended the stairs. I waited at the top, ears straining for any sound beyond his footsteps. They echoed once, twice, then became muffled. A full minute passed. Then 2. Paul, I called out. No answer. Paul, you okay? Still nothing. I was about to go get my phone when he finally reappeared. But his face, something was off. He looked pale, like someone had drained half the blood from his body. His hands were trembling slightly. He didn't speak right away, just reached into his bag, pulled out his phone, and showed me a picture. What? What is that? I asked. It was a hole, a perfect circle carved into the far wall of my basement, surrounded by soot-black stains and what looked like dozens of tiny handprints. Child-sized, burnt into the concrete, some were upside down. I don't know, Paul said, his voice thin, but I'm not going down there again. You should call somebody. Then he packed up and left, and that night at 12:44 a.m., a new alert arrived. A door has opened. Do not descend. Do not think of the door. Do not think of the hands. Too late. I was already thinking of both. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I really did. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Those handprints scorched into concrete. Dozens of them. Tiny, upside down, impossible. I'd always thought a handprint meant a child had touched something once. These looked like something had pushed through from the other side. The alerts hadn't come back since midnight, but their silence was worse. It felt like being watched by something patient, something that didn't need to make noise anymore because it already had my full attention. Every bump in the walls, every gust of wind through the vents, every creak of the floorboards above or below, I jumped at all of it. Around 3 a.m., I broke. I stood in the hallway staring at the basement door. The silence felt wrong, like a vacuum, like something was waiting for me to break the rules. I pressed my ear to the door, nothing. No whispers, no scratching, just silence. But it felt intentional. I pulled back, and then behind me, a chime. My phone lit up again, but the screen was different this time. It wasn't a standard alert. It was a warning in red text, with a timer counting down from 60. Thought breach detected. Suppress all imagery of a black circular hole, small upside-down hands, the whispering voice. Come down, Melanie. Timer. 00:59. I blinked at it, confused. What the hell is a thought breach? The timer kept ticking. 00:48. 00:47. Then the phone vibrated more violently than before. A secondary warning popped up. Failure to comply may result in mental interface breach. I tried not to think of the hole, but that just made me picture it. The scorched edges, the soot, the darkness inside, the handprints. I squeezed my eyes shut and focused on literally anything else. My dog as a puppy, fresh laundry, my third-grade spelling bee, but the thoughts kept bleeding back in like ink in water. 0.25, 0.24. I could feel something shifting around me. The temperature dropped, but the pressure rose. The air felt denser, like the walls were listening. I bit down on the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood, trying to drown the images in pain. It worked a little. 0010. Don't think of the hole. Don't think of the hole. 0003. At 001, the screen flashed blinding white, then it went black. I waited for something to happen. Some punishment, some scream from the vents, something grabbing my ankle from beneath the floorboards. But nothing came. Instead, a new alert appeared. Breach temporarily contained, mental shielding required. Do not speak of the basement to anyone. Do not trust individuals who mention it first. I threw the phone across the room. It clattered onto the rug and lay still. I stayed on the couch until sunrise, barely breathing. Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe. I looked up at the attic hatch in the ceiling and felt something shift behind it. A soft bump, like someone repositioning themselves. My phone lit up again. The entity has moved. Do not trust your house. Basement, contained. Attic, unstable. Do not look up for long periods. Do not acknowledge any ceiling movement. I staggered backward, eyes wide. My house, it wasn't just haunted, it was infected. I turned off all the lights I could and sat still in the kitchen, curtains drawn, every doorway within sight. I tried not to think about anything, especially not the hole in the basement wall or the mimic that wore my face. But then the voice came again. Only this time it was inside my head, clear, familiar, and absolutely mine. You already went downstairs, you just don't remember. My heart skipped. Number that wasn't true. I hadn't gone down. I remembered everything. Right? But then, images, flashes, a spiral staircase I didn't recognize, my bare feet on cold concrete, a circle of ash, whispers in the walls, a whisper I had responded to, my own voice saying, "I'm ready." I fell to my knees. Something was wrong with my memories. Had I already broken the rules? I crawled to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, breathing hard, staring into the mirror. But the reflection wasn't breathing. I stopped. So did it. It stared back, expressionless. Then it whispered, without opening its mouth, "The rules change when you remember." And behind me, faint and rising from beneath the floor, came the sound of dozens of soft barefoot footsteps. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Not rushed, not chaotic. Just steady, like children walking in perfect unison, barefoot, heel to toe across concrete. They didn't echo, they didn't stumble, they just kept coming. I backed out of the bathroom, still watching my reflection. It hadn't blinked. It hadn't moved. But its mouth, my mouth, was curling into a smile now. A wrong one. The kind of grin you give when you know something awful is about to happen, and you're the only one who's in on the joke. My phone buzzed again. Mental interface breach imminent. Memory loops detected. Stabilize using physical truths. The floor is wood. The kitchen is to your left. You have never been in the basement. You have never been in the basement. You have never been in the... The alert glitched. The screen flickered like a dying candle before the whole thing shut off. I dropped the phone. Then everything went quiet again. Not just the footsteps, everything, even the hum of silence vanished. It was like the world took a breath and held it. That's when I noticed the smell was gone. No ash, no sulfur, no damp rot. And that should have made me feel safe. But it didn't. Because something else had replaced it. Something worse. The smell of old television static. Not ozone, not electricity. I mean the exact scent that hits your brain when you stare at a detuned screen. Fuzzy light, droning grey sound, and that sour metal air you can't describe but instantly recognize. It came from beneath the floor. I took one step back, and the basement door opened on its own. I didn't scream. I wanted to. But a deeper instinct, the one that says don't move, don't breathe, don't be seen, rooted me in place. The door didn't creak or swing open dramatically. It just was open. 1 second it was shut, the next it wasn't. A single bare light bulb hung just below the ceiling, casting a cone of dusty yellow over the top of the stairs. And beyond that, pitch black. The staircase was wrong. It looked longer than it should have been, deeper than the footprint of the house allowed. Then came the sound. Not footsteps this time, not voices. It was static. Real, honest-to-God analog static, like an old TV searching for a channel in a dead signal wasteland. And layered beneath that static, faint and rising, was my voice, sobbing, repeating the same words over and over. I didn't mean to remember. I didn't mean to remember. I didn't mean... I slammed the door shut, locked it, pushed the fridge in front of it for good measure. My lungs burned from holding my breath. Then my laptop woke up on its own. It had been off for 2 days. The screen glowed pale blue, blinking slowly like it was breathing. Then the screen turned black and displayed a new message, typed in real time. You are not experiencing a haunting. You are experiencing a realignment. The house is adapting to you. Stop resisting. Let the loop complete. I slammed it shut and ran outside. The world should have looked normal. My car was in the driveway. Birds were chirping in the trees. A man walked his dog across the street. But something was wrong. The shadows were all just a bit too long. The sun looked like it was stuck mid-rise, frozen behind gauze-thin clouds that never moved. There were no sounds of cars, no wind, no background noise at all. I looked at my neighbor, Mrs. Reynolds, watering her garden. She waved. Then she froze. Literally, like a paused video. Water from her can hung mid-pour, unmoving. Her smile stayed frozen on her face, and when I stepped off my porch and waved back, her mouth opened and let out a burst of pure static. I stumbled back. The world twitched. For a moment the sky flickered like bad reception, and the air buzzed with that now familiar metallic pressure. Another alert came through, this time on every screen I could see. Phones, smartwatches, even the weather app on my car's dashboard. Environmental loop reset required. Basement, triggered. Reality layer, degrading. Return to origin point immediately. You have 8 minutes to comply. My house's front door creaked open behind me. I hadn't touched it. The smell of static rolled out, warm and dry, and now I understood the truth. The basement wasn't a place. Not really. It was a memory I'd buried, a thing I had done, or seen, or agreed to before I even moved here. The rules weren't warnings, they were containment protocols. Someone, or something, had written them to keep me from remembering. But I'd already broken too many. The mimic, the attic movement, the reflection, the whisper. And now, the loop. I turned slowly. The inside of the house looked different, darker, as if every surface was just a high-resolution photograph of what used to be real. I stepped back inside. The walls breathed, and from the bottom of the stairs came a soft voice, mine, asking, "Do you remember what we buried down there?" The moment I stepped inside, I could feel the house closing in. Not physically, the dimensions were the same, but the feeling changed, like I was underwater. Every movement was sluggish, every breath heavy. The air smelled like burned copper and damp wool. The door closed softly behind me. I didn't touch it. I was already being pulled. The fridge had moved back on its own. The basement door stood wide open again, gaping like a mouth ready to swallow. And the static was louder now, throbbing. I checked my phone, dead again. But my reflection in the dark window didn't hold a phone. She looked back at me, eyes hollow, mouth trembling. Then she shook her head and mouthed, "Don't go." Too late. I stepped forward. Each stair felt like it was sinking deeper into something not made of wood, more like clay. The light overhead dimmed with each step, the bulb slowly flickering until it buzzed out completely as I reached the bottom. Then I heard it. My own voice, breathy, raw, young, whispering something I couldn't make out. I turned my head toward the sound. There, in the corner of the basement, a single object stood. An old television. One of those massive wood-paneled monsters from the 1980s. It shouldn't have been there. I'd never seen it before in my life, but I knew it. It glowed faintly with static snow. The screen crackled softly, humming with that low, dead channel tone. And then, without me touching it, it changed. The snow flickered into a scene. A little girl, about 9, sitting cross-legged in front of the same television, hugging a stuffed rabbit. She was pale, barefoot, hair matted with sweat. She looked up. It was me. Not just a resemblance. Me, from almost 2 decades ago. I didn't remember that rabbit. I didn't remember that room. But my body did. The screen shifted again. This time the girl was hiding under a blanket, curled into a ball, her mouth moving silently. Then the voice, my voice, came from the TV. "Do not answer when it knocks." The girl looked toward the door off-screen. There was a soft knock, 3 times, and then the blanket bulged near her feet, like something was already under it with her. The screen cut to black, then flashed white text, like an alert. Initial breach, age 9. Source, basement subject. Response, suppression. Successful current status. Fracture detected. I stumbled backward into a wall. What the hell was this? Had this all started before I moved here, before I remembered the rules? Another alert flashed on the wall now, projected from nothing. Memory containment failed event loop. Collapsing choose stabilization path. 2 options blinked into existence in front of me. Glowing blue text written in thin lines of flickering static. Basement. Accept. Escape. Reject. My heart pounded. Accept or reject? What did that even mean? I reached for escape, but my hand froze. My fingers wouldn't move toward it. They felt like someone else's hands now, numb, heavy, distant. And then a new presence filled the basement. Not seen, felt. Like a pressure behind my eyes, a weight in my chest, a voice without sound whispering directly into the folds of my brain. "You were never meant to come back." I turned. There, near the far wall, the concrete had cracked. A fissure I hadn't noticed before now glowed with a dull red light. It pulsed, then opened, a sliver wide enough for me to crawl through. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed no. But my body moved anyway. I got down on my hands and knees and began crawling, the jagged edges of the opening scraping at my arms, my knees, tearing little lines into my skin. The passage narrowed, then widened, then narrowed again. I kept going, and the deeper I went, the less the world made sense. My thoughts became echoes. My vision began to trail, like my brain was lagging behind my body. The air tasted like melted cassette tape and candle smoke, and all the while that voice kept whispering, not with words, but with memories. It showed me things I didn't remember but should have. A basement in another house, a locked door, screams behind it. A man I didn't recognize, calling me by name. And a sentence that burrowed deep into my skull, so sharp and so final that it hurt to think around it. "We made the rules to stop you." I came out the other side of the passage, gasping, covered in dust and dried blood. I was no longer in a basement. I was in a mirror of my house, same layout, same furniture, same light fixtures, but off. The angles were wrong. The walls curved where they shouldn't. The shadows bent upward. The windows showed a pitch-black landscape with stars that didn't belong in our sky. Something scurried across the ceiling on too many legs, and then from the hallway came a second me. Again, only this time her eyes weren't black. They were glassy, tearful. She held up her hand, palm out. "Please," she said softly, "don't make me remember it again." Behind her, a new door appeared, painted red, hinges on the ceiling. It opened, and something started to crawl out. The red door hung open like a mouth unhinged. From within it, something emerged, on all fours at first. Its limbs moved wrong, like it had too many joints. The skin wasn't quite skin, more like a thick layer of VHS tape unspooling as it moved. Its head twitched violently with static bursts, and every few seconds its face flickered. My face, then someone else's, then a child's. It breathed in radio waves. The thing paused just beyond the threshold, then tilted its head at me. Or at the other version of me, the one with tear-glazed eyes who'd begged me not to remember. She dropped her hand and took a step back. I tried to keep it buried, she whispered. But you started thinking again. You always start thinking again. What is that? I asked. My voice was barely audible above the static hum that filled the air, her eyes locked onto mine. It's not what. It's when. The creature's head snapped toward me, and I remembered. Not all of it. Not clearly, but a flood of sensations hit me like a scream underwater. Cold basement air, a whimpering voice behind a wall, the iron scent of blood, and a warning written in marker on the inside of a closet. Do not listen to yourself. The creature moved. Not fast, not violently. It just slid forward with impossible silence, the static from its body growing louder. My ears began to ring, my vision pixelated for a heartbeat. The other me backed further into the hallway toward a mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. It was a perfect match to the one I'd smashed upstairs 3 days ago. She looked at me one last time and said, "You don't escape by running. You escape by forgetting." Then she stepped into the mirror and vanished. The creature stopped. It turned toward the mirror, sniffing or sensing something, its long fingers flexed, twitching like antennae tuning for a signal. Then it looked at me again, and it smiled. A long, thin smile full of white noise and memory fragments. You opened the broadcast. Its voice wasn't its own. It was mine, distorted. Played backward, then forward again, like an old tape melting under the sun. Why me? I asked aloud. Why this house? Why this loop? It took a step forward, and the entire hallway glitched. For a split second, I was in a hospital room. Then a child's bedroom. Then a dark forest filled with speakers nailed to trees. The walls pulsed. The creature replied, not with words, but with memory. Suddenly, I was seeing through its eyes. They were to protect the world from me. I couldn't breathe. The TV screens around me flickered, a cacophony of static, showing versions of myself I didn't recognize. Some were smiling, others were frantic. But they all shared one thing in common. They were trapped. They were all stuck in the same loop, the same damn cycle. The creatures, the broadcasts, the warnings. All of it was designed to keep us contained. I stumbled backward, crashing into one of the screens. It buzzed violently, distorting as my reflection on the glass warped into something monstrous. The distorted face was grinning, eyes wide, staring through me. Its mouth opened and closed in slow motion, mimicking my every movement. The warning flashed again, familiar, terrifying. Stay above ground. Do not enter your basement. It was no longer a message. It was a command. The screens were alive, pulsing, each one broadcasting a signal, distorting my perception of the room. The walls twisted, became fluid, folding in on themselves, trapping me in a labyrinth of mirrored reflections. I turned. I needed to get out, but the space had changed. There were no doors, no windows. Just a series of flashing monitors, glowing white-hot with static. The air thickened with each breath, suffocating me. Then I heard it. A low hum. A voice, disjointed and broken, rising from the center of the room. It was my own voice, but it wasn't. You have to remember, it whispered, like a lost echo, fragmented and hollow. You created it. You. All of this. Your memories, your rules, your basement. It all started with you. I grabbed at my ears, the words scraping through my skull like fingernails on glass. The creature's presence pressed in, filling every crack, every inch of the room. It was more than just a monster. It was a parasite. Feeding on my own mind, my own fear, twisting everything I had known into a sickening parody. I forced my feet to move, but the floor wasn't solid anymore. I was sinking into it, the tiles softening beneath me, pulling me deeper, drawing me toward an unseen abyss. You are the broadcast, the voice continued, low and insistent. You are the signal. The loop will continue until you break it, until you stop remembering. I screamed, but my voice was muffled by the static. The room vibrated, the walls closing in as if they were alive, coiling like snakes, and the creature, the thing that had once been my reflection, emerged from the shadows. It was tall now, towering over me, eyes black and empty, its long, twisted arms reaching out to touch me. I didn't fight back. I couldn't. I was too tired, too broken. It grabbed my face, its fingers cool and wet, pressing against my skull. The static in the air intensified, thrumming through my body. My vision blurred, and I felt myself fading, dissolving into the hum. And then a sudden clarity. The house, the basement, the alerts, the rules. It all connected. A pattern. The creature's face flickered in front of me, each face a different version of myself. You don't remember? Its voice was no longer mine. It was a chorus of voices, all my voices, from all the versions, from all the loops. But you've always known. This is your doing, your fault. The memories came rushing back, not in fragments anymore, but as a full flood. I had created it. The alerts, the warnings, the basement. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't an accident. It was a construct. I had been the one to set this all in motion. The loops, the broadcasts, the creature. It was all a result of my obsession, my need for control, my need to keep something safe, to protect myself, to stop myself from forgetting. The signal broke. The room, no, the house, shifted again, like it had been shaken. The floor beneath me solidified, the walls peeled away, and I found myself standing in front of the original basement door again. The one I had opened countless times, the one that had started all of this. But it wasn't the same door anymore. It was cracked, the paint chipped and worn as though it had been there for years. There was no sign, no alert. Just the door, just the waiting darkness behind it. I reached out, my hand trembling, but this time I didn't feel fear. I felt something else, acceptance. The thing in the basement wasn't waiting for me to enter. It was waiting for me to stop remembering. I could hear the hum again, distant but insistent. It was calling me, my own voice, begging me to forget, to let go, to let it all wash away. But I couldn't. I refused. I wasn't going to stop remembering. I wasn't going to let this nightmare claim me. I wasn't going to be its host any longer. I threw open the basement door, and I saw the truth. The basement stretched out infinitely. I couldn't see the walls, the ceiling. It was all darkness, but in the center of the room there was a single object. A black box. Its surface was smooth, unmarked, yet it hummed with an intensity I could feel in my bones. This was the source. The signal. The broadcast. I stepped forward, every instinct screaming for me to turn back, but I didn't. I reached out and touched the box. The moment I did, the house shook, the walls cracked, the air went still, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was silence. The silence was suffocating. For a moment I thought I had finally crossed the threshold, that the world had ended and I had been left alone in this endless void. But there was no sense of release, no relief, just a raw, unbearable stillness that swallowed every sound, every breath. And the box. The black box was humming louder now. Its surface rippled like it was made of liquid, stretching and contracting as though it was breathing, pulling in and pushing out the air around it. The hum grew deeper, vibrating through my body, pressing against my chest until it felt like my heart was beating in time with the noise. The walls of the basement, the door, the very floor beneath me were no longer solid. It was as if they had been absorbed into the blackness, turning into something fluid, malleable, like ink in water. I stepped closer to the box. It was impossible to look away. I didn't want to touch it, but I couldn't stop myself. My hand reached out on its own, trembling in the air before it made contact with the smooth, cold surface. The instant my skin made contact, the hum stopped. And then there was only quiet. The quiet was worse than the noise. It pressed against my eardrums like the absence of sound was suffocating every thought I had ever known. It was as though time had stopped entirely. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. But the box, it wasn't still. It was alive, pulsing beneath my fingers like it was feeding off me, off my fear, off my memories. I felt a strange sensation in my chest, a pull like something was trying to tear my soul from my body. The air in the basement grew colder, colder than it had ever been, as though the temperature was dropping not just in the room, but in the entire house. The dark crept further into the corners of my vision, swallowing everything until I could no longer see the walls or even the door behind me. It was just me, and the box, and then a voice. My voice. This is the end. It wasn't just a whisper. It wasn't just a thought. It was the truth. The box shimmered, the surface rippling, and a jagged crack appeared down the middle. My fingers recoiled instinctively, but it was too late. The box split open with a sharp metallic sound, and a burst of light flooded the room. The light was blinding. It wasn't warm, it wasn't comforting, it didn't illuminate. It consumed. Everything around me was consumed by that light, and for a moment I couldn't tell if I was still standing or if I had fallen into a hole, falling endlessly into the void. Then it stopped. The light didn't fade, it disappeared. The basement was gone. The house was gone. I was standing outside. The cool night air bit at my skin, sharp and crisp, the grass crunching beneath my feet. I looked up. The stars were gone. In their place there was a massive screen, a black expanse stretching across the sky, static swirling like a whirlpool. It flickered and pulsed like the hum in the basement, and the words appeared across the screen, distorted and jagged. The signal has been broadcast. The message echoed in my head, reverberating like it was being spoken directly to my soul. I turned around, searching for something, anything to anchor myself. I wasn't in my town anymore. I wasn't even in my world. The landscape was barren, flat, and endless. The ground was cracked, dry, like it hadn't seen rain in centuries. There was nothing here, just me, alone. I couldn't move. My legs wouldn't respond. My mind felt like it had been ripped out, leaving me floating in a cold, empty space where there was no time. I raised my hand to my mouth, trying to scream, but there was no sound. Only static. Only the hum of the broadcast. "You created this," the voice whispered again. This time it was mine, but not mine. A broken, distorted version of my voice, the creature's voice. "You built the loop. You gave it life. You gave it power. You can't escape." I closed my eyes, trying to block out the noise, but the words kept coming, unrelenting, ripping through my mind like a knife. "You are the host. You are the signal. And now the broadcast is complete." I opened my eyes again, and the world around me shifted. The barren land, the cracked earth, it started to change, morphing as though it was being rewritten. The empty sky filled with clouds that began to swirl, taking on the same pattern of the static. It was happening again. The loop was beginning. The broadcast was starting again, from the very beginning. But this time it wasn't just the house. It wasn't just the basement. It was everything. I could feel it, the weight of every memory I had, every choice, every mistake, every wrong turn. They were all blending into one horrifying truth. There was no escape from the broadcast. Not anymore. I was part of it now. And it would never end. The last thing I saw before everything went black was a single message on the screen above me, written in bold, jagged letters: "Do not enter your basement, stay above ground." But it didn't matter anymore. The world was still. My mind screamed in silence, but the static washed it all away. It was as if my very thoughts were being swallowed, leaving only the hum, the endless, maddening hum that had filled every moment since I'd opened the door to the basement. I didn't know if I was dead. I didn't know if I was alive. I didn't know if this was the end or the beginning. The world had gone black, and the screens, those screens that had surrounded me for so long, were gone. I couldn't see them, couldn't hear them, and yet I knew they were still there, watching, listening. The broadcast was never over. I could feel it in my bones, in the very air around me. I had been pulled into it, consumed by it. It wasn't just a loop anymore. It wasn't just the alerts or the creature or the basement. It was everything. The whole of my existence was part of it now. My eyes snapped open, but the darkness didn't lift. It was still there, but now I could hear something. A voice. My voice, but older, worn down, broken. "I told you." I blinked, trying to focus. There, standing before me, was something I couldn't understand, a shadow within the dark. It wasn't human. It wasn't even real. Not in the way I had known reality before. It was the thing in the basement, the creature, the host. It smiled, but not like a normal smile. Its grin stretched too wide, too far, its teeth jagged and broken. Its eyes were hollow pits, reflecting the very static that had once consumed my mind. You think you can end it? The voice rasped, and it wasn't just speaking to me, it was speaking through me. You think you can break the loop? You started it. You are it. I tried to speak, but no words came. My mouth was dry, empty. The creature tilted its head, the grin growing wider, impossibly wide. It's not about escape. You are the broadcast. The signal was always meant to find you. It stepped forward, and as it did, the darkness around me seemed to tighten, constricting until I could barely breathe. Its form wavered, shifting like smoke, but I could feel its presence, solid, pressing in on me, forcing my mind to bend, to break. I wanted to run, I wanted to escape, but there was no escape. There was nowhere to run. You're the one who gave it power, the basement, the rules, the alerts. The creature's voice became a chant, repeating, growing louder. You gave it power. No, I thought. It wasn't me. I didn't do this. I didn't create it. I didn't. But you did, the creature interrupted, its voice no longer mine, but a chorus of my own. You thought you could control it, keep it locked away. But now it's all you. Everything. The broadcast, the signal, the loop. I felt my legs give out, but the ground wasn't soft. It wasn't solid. It was nothing. I fell into it, sinking deeper into the void, but it was a void of my own making. Everything started to blur. The creature's voice echoed around me, distorting into 1,000 different versions of itself, each one more distorted than the last. Its form twisted, melted, and reformed, always the same, but never quite the same. It wasn't just a monster anymore, it was a reflection of me. My worst fear, the basement, the rules, the alerts, all of it, feeding on my doubt, on my obsession with control, with safety. You thought it was just a warning, it sneered, its form stretching. You thought it was a trap, but the trap was always you. You are the one who opened the door. And then it happened. The ground beneath me crumbled, the blackness shattered, breaking into pieces, revealing something more terrifying than I could have imagined. There were no walls, no sky, just endless television screens, endless broadcasts, flashing with the same warning, stay above ground, do not enter your basement. The words cycled again and again, louder now, suffocating me with their repetition. I tried to scream, but no sound came. The creature's laughter filled the air, vibrating through my skull, making the static feel alive, like it was crawling beneath my skin, gnawing at my mind. Do you understand now? The creature's voice was mocking, cruel. It was never about the basement. It was never about the rules. It was always about you, and you will be the one to continue the broadcast. You always were. My body jerked. I was being pulled toward the center of the room, toward the screens, toward the message. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't control it. Every part of me screamed to stop, but it was too late.
The screens flashed brighter, the static louder until I couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't... And then I remembered. This wasn't the first time. It was never the first time. The broadcast was always there, always repeating, always waiting. It had found me long ago, long before the basement, before the alerts, before the rules. It had been feeding off my mind, my fear, my need to understand. I had been a part of it for so long that I had forgotten. I had always been the broadcast. And now I would be its signal. The screen flickered. The cycle reset. Stay above ground. Do not enter your basement. The loop continued.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.